Have you ever noticed how a man's entire demeanor changes when he's around you? How his voice softens, how his eyes linger just a moment longer, how he suddenly becomes more attentive to details he'd normally overlook? There's a profound psychological transformation that occurs when a man genuinely falls for an older woman, and it's far more complex and beautiful than most people realize. This isn't about age. This is about the unique qualities, experiences, and emotional depth that come with living fully, and how these qualities trigger something deep within a man's psychology that he may have never experienced before. Welcome back to The Heart Code, where we decode the intricate psychology of human relationships and empower you with the knowledge to navigate your emotional landscape with confidence and clarity. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found us. This channel is dedicated to bringing you evidence-based insights into relationship dynamics, particularly for women who have lived, loved, learned, and evolved through their experiences. Before we dive deep into today's topic, I want to ask you for your support. If you find value in this content, please take a moment to hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more women who need to hear this message. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters, and your stories create a community where we all learn from each other. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these dynamics. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss our insights. And if you really want to support the work we do here, consider thanking us with a super thanks. Your support allows us to continue creating this content and reaching more women with these empowering messages. Now, let's talk about something extraordinary that happens in the realm of human connection. When a man falls for an older woman, something profound shifts in his psychological landscape. This isn't the infatuation of youth or the superficial attraction based purely on physical appearance. This is a deeper, more substantial transformation that affects how he thinks, how he feels, how he behaves, and ultimately, how he shows up in the relationship. The first psychological shift that occurs is in how he perceives value. For much of his life, a man has been conditioned by society, media, and cultural narratives to equate value with youth, with a specific type of beauty, with malleability. But when he encounters a woman who has lived, who carries her experiences with grace, who knows who she is and what she wants, something clicks in his mind. He begins to recognize a different kind of value, a value that doesn't diminish with time but actually increases. He starts to see that the lines around your eyes tell stories of laughter and wisdom, that the confidence in your voice comes from having navigated storms and emerged stronger, that your boundaries aren't walls but rather clear indications of self-respect that he finds magnetic. This shift in perception of value fundamentally changes how he approaches the relationship. He's no longer trying to mold you into some idealized version of what he thinks he wants. He's not looking for a blank canvas he can paint his fantasies onto. He's captivated by the complete picture you already are, the masterpiece that's been created through years of experience, growth, and self-discovery. This realization does something powerful to his psychology. It humbles him. It makes him recognize that he's in the presence of someone whose worth isn't determined by external validation, but by an internal knowing that's been earned through living authentically. When a man experiences this shift in how he perceives value, it affects every interaction. He listens differently. He's not waiting for his turn to talk or half listening while planning what he's going to say. Next, he genuinely listens because he recognizes that what you have to say comes from a place of depth and experience. Your words carry weight. Your observations are informed by having seen patterns play out over time. Your advice is valuable because it's been tested against reality. He starts to seek your perspective not to placate you, but because he genuinely values your insight. This brings us to the second major psychological shift, the transition from ego-driven interaction to authentic connection. Young men, and even older men who haven't matured emotionally, often approach relationships with their ego leading the way. They're concerned with how they appear, with maintaining a certain image, with not showing vulnerability because they've learned to equate vulnerability with weakness. But when a man falls for an older woman who embodies emotional maturity, something fascinating happens in his psychology. Your emotional maturity becomes a mirror that reflects back to him the possibility of his own growth. You don't play games because you've learned that games waste precious time and energy. You don't manipulate because you understand that authentic connection requires honesty. You don't need to test him constantly because you trust your own judgment and intuition. This straightforwardness, this emotional honesty, creates a safe space that he may have never experienced before in a romantic relationship. In this safe space, his ego begins to relax. He realizes that he doesn't need to maintain a performance. He doesn't need to pretend to have all the answers. He doesn't need to hide his uncertainties or his moments of doubt. The psychological relief he experiences when he realizes he can be genuine, when he understands that you're not going to use his vulnerabilities against him, is profound. It's like a weight lifting from his shoulders. For perhaps the first time in his romantic life, he can exhale fully and be himself. This shift from ego to authenticity manifests in countless small but significant ways. He starts to share things he's never shared with anyone else, not because you're prying or demanding, but because you've created an environment where sharing feels natural and safe. He talks about his fears, his dreams, his disappointments, his hopes. He reveals the parts of himself that don't fit the masculine stereotype he's been taught to embody. He shows you his softer side, his creative side, his uncertain side, because your presence gives him permission to be multidimensional. The third psychological transformation involves his understanding of intimacy. When a man is young or emotionally immature, he often conflates intimacy with physical connection alone. But when he falls for an older woman who understands the full spectrum of intimacy, his perspective expands dramatically. He begins to understand that intimacy is the vulnerable space between two people, where authentic selves can meet without pretense. He learns that intimacy is built in conversations that go beyond surface level, in shared silences that feel comfortable rather than awkward, in the trust that develops when someone consistently shows up as themselves. Physical attraction is certainly present, but it becomes infused with something deeper. When he looks at you, he's not just seeing a body, he's seeing the person who listened to him talk about his childhood without judgment, the person who supported his ambitions while also gently challenging him to grow, the person who makes him laugh and think and feel in ways he didn't know were possible. The physical becomes an expression of this emotional and psychological connection, rather than being separate from it. This expanded understanding of intimacy changes how he approaches physical connection. There's more attention, more presence, more desire to truly connect, rather than just satisfy a physical urge. He becomes attuned to your pleasure in a way that's about genuine care rather than ego. He wants to know what brings you joy, what makes you feel cherished, what helps you feel seen and appreciated. This isn't about performance, it's about connection. And this shift in his psychology creates a depth of physical intimacy that many men never experience because they never have a partner who teaches them that intimacy is about so much more than the physical act itself. The fourth major psychological shift involves his relationship with communication. Many men have been socialized to view communication in relationships as something they have to endure rather than something valuable. They see discussions about feelings or relationship dynamics as unnecessary complications. But when a man falls for an older woman who communicates with clarity, purpose, and emotional intelligence, he experiences a revelation. He discovers that communication doesn't have to be filled with drama, passive aggression, or manipulation. You communicate your needs clearly without expecting him to read your mind. You express your feelings without making him responsible for managing your emotional state. You address issues directly without storing up resentment and unleashing it during an argument about something completely different. This style of communication is refreshing and, frankly, revolutionary for many men. They've experienced relationships where communication felt like navigating a minefield, where saying the wrong thing could trigger an explosion, where silence was often safer than speaking. But with you, communication becomes a tool for deepening connection rather than a source of anxiety. He learns that he can express himself honestly without it turning into a crisis. He discovers that disagreements don't have to mean the end of everything. He realizes that two people can have different perspectives and work through them with respect and care. This psychological shift is liberating. It makes him want to communicate more, not less. He starts to initiate conversations about his feelings, about the relationship, about his concerns and hopes, because he's learned that communication with you leads to resolution and deeper understanding rather than conflict and confusion. The fifth transformation involves his concept of partnership. Many men grow up with either traditional models of relationships, where roles are rigidly defined, or they grow up with confusion about what partnership actually means. They might intellectually believe in equality, but struggle with what that looks like in practice. When a man falls for an older woman who embodies true partnership, his understanding evolves rapidly. You don't need him to complete you because you're already whole. You don't need him to rescue you because you've learned to rescue yourself. You don't need him to give your life meaning because you've created a life rich with meaning. This might seem like it would make you less desirable, but the opposite is true. Your completeness is magnetic because it means that your choice to be with him is exactly that. A choice, not a need born from desperation or lack. This realization shifts something fundamental in his psychology. He understands that you're with him because you want to be, because you choose to share your life with him, not because you need him to fill some void. This is simultaneously humbling and empowering. It's humbling because he recognizes the honor of being chosen by someone who has options and knows her worth. It's empowering because it frees him from the pressure of being everything for you. He doesn't have to be your source of happiness, your entertainment, your purpose, your identity. He gets to be your partner, your equal, your companion on this journey. This understanding of partnership transforms how he shows up in the relationship. He becomes more collaborative. He considers your needs and desires not out of obligation, but because your happiness genuinely matters to him as much as his own. He takes initiative in planning, in maintaining the relationship, in addressing issues because he sees himself as an equal stakeholder in what you're building together. He doesn't wait for you to manage everything emotional or logistical. He steps up because he understands that partnership means shared responsibility and shared reward. The sixth psychological shift is perhaps one of the most significant: his relationship with his own growth. Before meeting you, he might have been comfortable with where he was in life. Maybe he'd achieved certain goals and felt satisfied. Maybe he'd become complacent, settling into routines that were comfortable but not challenging. Or maybe he'd been stuck, unable to find the motivation or direction to move forward. When a man falls for an older woman who clearly values personal growth and continuous self-improvement, he's confronted with a mirror that shows him his own potential. You're not trying to change him, you're not nagging or criticizing, but your very existence, the way you approach life with curiosity and a willingness to learn and grow, inspires something in him. He starts to want to be better, not to please you, but because being around you makes him aware of possibilities he hadn't considered. This psychological shift manifests in various ways. He might start reading books he wouldn't have picked up before. He might become more interested in self-reflection and understanding his own patterns. He might seek out new challenges professionally or personally. He might work on healing old wounds or addressing behaviors that he knows don't serve him well. The beautiful thing about this transformation is that it's internally motivated. You're not pushing him to change. The desire comes from within him, sparked by witnessing your own commitment to growth. This creates a dynamic in the relationship where both people are evolving, where both people are bringing new dimensions of themselves to the partnership. It keeps the relationship fresh and dynamic because you're not stagnant. You're not the same people you were when you met. You're continually becoming more authentic, more self-aware, more capable versions of yourselves, and you're doing it together while also respecting each other's individual journeys. The seventh transformation involves his experience of respect. Respect is often discussed in relationships, but its depth is rarely truly understood or experienced. When a man falls for an older woman who commands respect through her very being, not through demands or manipulation, but through the way she carries herself and treats others, he learns what respect actually means in a relationship context. He learns to respect your time. He doesn't expect you to drop everything for him because he understands that you have a full life with commitments, relationships, interests, and obligations that exist independently of him. He learns to respect your boundaries. When you say no or establish a limit, he doesn't push or try to manipulate you into changing your position. He accepts it because he's learned that your boundaries are an expression of self-respect, and violating them would be violating the trust between you. He learns to respect your opinions even when they differ from his. He doesn't dismiss your perspectives as overly emotional or irrational. He recognizes that your views are informed by experiences and reflection, and even when he disagrees, he respects that you've arrived at your conclusions through your own valid process of thought. He learns to respect your autonomy. He doesn't try to control your choices or make decisions for you. He understands that you're a sovereign individual capable of making your own choices, and he respects your right to live your life according to your own values and desires. This respect transforms the entire relationship dynamic. There's no power struggle because neither person is trying to dominate the other. There's no resentment building because both people feel seen and valued. There's no need for manipulation or game playing because honest, respectful communication addresses needs and concerns directly. The relationship becomes a place of mutual respect where both people can thrive as individuals while also nurturing the connection between them. The eighth psychological shift involves his understanding of love itself. Many men go through life with a relatively superficial understanding of what love means. They think love is intense feelings, butterflies, passion, attraction. And while those elements can be part of love, they're not the fullness of it. When a man falls for an older woman who understands love as action, choice, commitment, care, and respect, his entire concept of love deepens and matures. He learns that love isn't just a feeling that happens to you. It's a choice you make every day. It's showing up consistently. It's being there during the difficult times, not just the good ones. It's supporting your partner's growth even when it's uncomfortable. It's choosing connection even when you're tired or stressed or distracted. It's the small acts of thoughtfulness and consideration that accumulate over time to create a foundation of trust and care. This mature understanding of love changes how he behaves in the relationship. He doesn't rely on grand gestures to prove his love, while neglecting the daily small acts that truly build connection. He doesn't disappear when things get challenging, expecting that love should be easy all the time. He doesn't take you for granted, assuming that because you're together, he doesn't need to continue investing in the relationship. He understands that love is a living, growing thing that requires attention, care, and nurturing. He also learns that love and independence aren't opposites. He can love you deeply while also maintaining his own identity, interests, and friendships, and he can support you in maintaining yours. This understanding prevents the unhealthy enmeshment that often characterizes immature relationships, where people lose themselves in the relationship and then resent each other for the loss of self. The ninth transformation is in his relationship with time. When a man is young, he often feels like he has unlimited time. He can waste years in relationships that aren't serving him. He can procrastinate on important conversations or decisions. He can take his partner for granted because there will always be more time to appreciate her later. But when a man falls for an older woman who has a mature relationship with time, understanding its value and its limits, his own perspective shifts. He becomes more present. He realizes that this moment, right now, is all we ever truly have. The past is gone and the future is uncertain, so he learns to be here fully in conversations with you, in shared experiences, in quiet moments. He's not constantly distracted by his phone or thinking about the next thing on his agenda. He's here with you in this moment. He also becomes more intentional about how he uses time. He doesn't want to waste precious days or weeks in unnecessary conflicts or misunderstandings. He addresses issues as they arise rather than letting them fester. He makes time for the relationship, understanding that it won't maintain itself through benign neglect. He prioritizes experiences and connection, recognizing that these are the things that truly matter, not the accumulation of more stuff or achievements at the expense of relationship. This awareness of time's preciousness also affects his commitment. He doesn't want to waste your time or his own in a relationship that isn't right. But when he knows this is right, when he feels the depth of connection and recognizes that what you share is rare and valuable, he commits fully. He's not keeping one foot out the door or keeping his options open. He's all in because he understands that what you have is worth his full investment. The 10th psychological shift involves his experience of himself. This might be the most profound transformation of all. When a man falls for an older woman who sees him clearly, who recognizes both his strengths and his areas for growth without judgment, who accepts him as he is while also believing in who he can become, he begins to see himself differently. Your acceptance gives him permission to accept himself. The parts of himself he's been ashamed of or tried to hide become less frightening when he realizes that you see them and don't turn away. The dreams he's been afraid to voice become possible when you encourage him to pursue what truly matters to him. The person he's been trying to become feels within reach when you believe in his capability. This shift in self-perception is transformative. He becomes more confident, not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded, authentic way. He's more comfortable in his own skin, more willing to take risks, more open to trying new things, more forgiving of his own mistakes because he's learned from you that mistakes are part of growth, not indicators of fundamental inadequacy. He also becomes more aware of his impact on others. Your feedback, delivered with care and honesty, helps him understand how his actions affect those around him. He becomes more emotionally intelligent, more considerate, more aware of the ripples he creates in the world. This increased self-awareness makes him a better partner, friend, colleague, and person. Now, let's talk about something crucial. The psychological shift that happens when a man falls for an older woman also involves a recalibration of what he considers attractive. society bombards men with messages about what they should find attractive. Youth, specific body types, certain features. And while physical attraction is important, when a man falls for you, he discovers attractions he didn't know existed. He becomes attracted to your confidence, the way you move through the world with assurance, the way you make decisions without second-guessing yourself endlessly, the way you speak your truth even when it's uncomfortable. This confidence is magnetic in a way that insecurity, no matter how physically beautiful the package, can never be. He becomes attracted to your independence, the fact that you have your own life, your own interests, your own friends, your own goals. You're not dependent on him for your sense of self or your happiness. This independence is exciting because it means every moment you choose to spend with him is a gift, not an obligation or a desperate need. He becomes attracted to your depth, the layers of experience, wisdom, emotion, and thought that he continues to discover the more he knows you. You're not easily figured out or quickly exhausted as a subject of interest. There's always more to learn, more to understand, more to discover about who you are and how you see the world. He becomes attracted to your authenticity. You're not performing or pretending to be someone you're not to please him or anyone else. What he sees is what he gets. And the honesty of that is refreshing and deeply appealing. He knows where he stands with you. There's no guessing or decoding or trying to figure out what you really mean. He becomes attracted to your emotional intelligence, your ability to understand and navigate complex emotional landscapes, your capacity to hold space for difficult feelings, both your own and his, your skill at communicating about emotions without being controlled by them. This emotional intelligence creates a sense of safety that's profoundly attractive. These attractions don't replace physical attraction. They enhance it. They make the physical attraction more meaningful and more enduring, because he's attracted to you as a complete person, not just a collection of physical features. And that type of attraction doesn't fade when the temporary bloom of youth passes. It deepens with time because the qualities he's attracted to become richer and more developed with experience. Let's address something important. Not every man is capable of this psychological shift. Some men are so wedded to societal expectations, so trapped in their own insecurities, so limited in their emotional capacity that they can't appreciate the gift of connection with a mature, self-aware woman. And that's okay. Those men aren't for you. The man who can make this shift, who can recognize and value what you bring, who can grow and evolve in relationship with you, that's the man worth your time and energy. The 11th psychological transformation involves his relationship with vulnerability. Men are often taught that vulnerability is weakness. They learn to armor themselves emotionally, to never let anyone see them struggle or doubt or hurt. But when a man falls for an older woman who understands that vulnerability is actually strength, that it takes courage to be open and honest about your inner life, his relationship with vulnerability begins to change. He sees you being vulnerable, not in a performance of helplessness designed to manipulate him into rescuing you, but in genuine sharing of your feelings, your fears, your struggles. And he sees that your vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. It makes you trustworthy. It creates intimacy and connection. This observation begins to shift his own willingness to be vulnerable. At first, it might come in small doses, a brief mention of something he's worried about, a quiet admission of a fear or insecurity. But as he realizes that his vulnerability is met with compassion and acceptance rather than judgment or rejection, he becomes braver. He shares more. He lets you see the parts of himself that don't fit the strong, capable masculine image. The parts that are uncertain, afraid, sad, confused. This psychological shift is profound because it allows him to be fully human in the relationship, not just the strong protector or provider or problem solver, but a complete person with a full range of emotions and experiences. This completeness creates a deeper connection because you're both showing up as your whole selves, not edited versions designed to fit roles or expectations. The 12th shift involves his understanding of success and achievement. Many men define themselves by their accomplishments, their status, their accumulation of wealth or recognition. While there's nothing wrong with ambition or achievement, when these become the sole measure of worth, it creates a hollow existence. When a man falls for an older woman who has a more nuanced understanding of success, who values character, relationships, impact, and personal growth alongside professional achievement, his own definition begins to expand. He starts to consider questions he might not have asked before. What kind of person am I becoming? What impact am I having on the people in my life? Am I living according to my values? Am I making choices that reflect what truly matters to me? Or am I just chasing markers of success that society has told me are important? These questions lead to a deeper examination of his life and choices. This doesn't mean he stops being ambitious or driven. It means his ambition becomes more aligned with authentic values rather than external validation. He might shift career paths to something more meaningful, even if it's less prestigious. He might prioritize time for relationships over working excessive hours. He might measure his success by the quality of his life and relationships, rather than just financial metrics. This psychological transformation often leads to greater life satisfaction because he's living more authentically. He's making choices based on what actually matters to him rather than what he thinks should matter. And this authenticity ripples through every area of his life, including the relationship, making him a more present, engaged, fulfilled partner. The 13th transformation involves his relationship with conflict. Many people, not just men, approach conflict in relationships with dread or avoidance. They've learned that conflict is dangerous, that it means the relationship is in trouble, that it's something to be avoided at all costs. But when a man falls for an older woman who understands that conflict is inevitable in any close relationship, and that it can actually be an opportunity for growth and deeper understanding, his entire approach to disagreements changes. He learns that conflict doesn't mean the end of the relationship. It's not a catastrophe, it's two people with different perspectives trying to find understanding and resolution. This realization reduces the anxiety around disagreements. He doesn't panic when you have different opinions or when tension arises. He can stay present and engaged rather than withdrawing or becoming defensive. He also learns productive conflict skills from watching how you handle disagreements. You don't attack his character or bring up past grievances that have nothing to do with the current issue. You focus on the specific problem at hand. You use I statements to express your feelings and needs rather than use statements that sound like accusations. You're willing to take breaks when emotions get too high rather than pushing through to a resolution when neither of you is in a state to have a productive conversation. These skills become part of his own conflict approach. He learns to argue more constructively, to listen to understand rather than to defend, to acknowledge your perspective even when he disagrees, to work toward solutions that honor both people's needs rather than trying to win or prove he's right. This maturation in how he handles conflict strengthens the relationship because disagreements become opportunities to understand each other better rather than threats to the connection. The 14th psychological shift involves his capacity for empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's different from sympathy, which is feeling sorry for someone. Empathy is stepping into someone else's experience and seeing the world from their perspective. Many men struggle with empathy, not because they're inherently incapable of it, but because they haven't been taught its value or given opportunities to develop it. When a man falls for an older woman who naturally embodies empathy in how she relates to him and others, he begins to develop this capacity in himself. He sees how you listen deeply when he shares something difficult, how you try to understand his perspective even when it's different from yours, how you respond with compassion to his struggles, how you celebrate his victories with genuine joy. This modeling teaches him what empathy looks like in action. As his capacity for empathy grows, he becomes a better partner. He's more attuned to your emotional state. He notices when you're tired or stressed or upset, even when you haven't said anything. He asks how you're doing and genuinely wants to know. He considers how his actions might affect you. He makes efforts to understand your experience, even when it's very different from his own. This empathy also extends beyond the relationship. He becomes more compassionate in general, more aware of others' struggles, more willing to help, more understanding of different perspectives. This growth in empathy makes him a better human being, and it enriches the relationship because you're both capable of truly seeing and understanding each other. The 15th transformation is in his relationship with masculinity itself. Society has very rigid ideas about what it means to be a man. Be strong, don't cry, be aggressive, compete, win, provide, protect. While some of these qualities can be positive, the rigidity of masculine expectations often prevents men from being fully human. They can't access their full range of emotions. They can't be soft or nurturing. They can't admit weakness or ask for help. When a man falls for an older woman who appreciates a fuller, more authentic expression of masculinity, he gains permission to redefine what being a man means for him. He can be strong and vulnerable, confident and uncertain, protective and in need of care, competent and still learning. He doesn't have to fit into a narrow box of acceptable masculine behavior. He can be complex, multifaceted, fully human. This liberation from rigid masculine expectations is psychologically freeing. He can express emotions he's been suppressing. He can engage in activities or interests that he might have avoided because they weren't masculine enough. He can ask for support when he needs it without feeling like he's failing at manhood. He can be gentle, creative, nurturing, emotional, all while still feeling secure in his masculine identity. This more flexible, authentic masculinity benefits the relationship tremendously. You get all of him, not just the parts that fit the masculine stereotype. He's more emotionally available, more expressive, more connected to himself, and therefore better able to connect with you. The relationship isn't constrained by rigid gender roles, but can flow more naturally based on who you both actually are and what you each bring to the partnership. The 16th psychological shift involves his experience of joy. This might seem strange to mention specifically, but it's significant. Many men go through life experiencing pleasure, satisfaction, achievement, excitement, but not necessarily deep joy. Joy is different. Joy is a state of being that comes from living authentically, from meaningful connection, from alignment between values and actions, from presence in the moment. When a man falls for an older woman who has cultivated joy in her life, who finds delight in simple things, who hasn't let life's disappointments rob her of the capacity to experience happiness, he's exposed to this quality in a way that's contagious. He starts to notice things he would have overlooked before. The beauty of a sunset, the pleasure of a well-prepared meal, the satisfaction of a meaningful conversation, the delight of laughter shared with someone he cares about. You teach him, not through instruction but through example, that life is to be savored, not just endured or conquered. That success means nothing if you're not enjoying the journey. That accumulating more stuff or achievements won't bring happiness if you're not cultivating joy in the process. This lesson is transformative because it shifts his entire approach to life, from constantly striving toward the next goal to appreciating what's present right now. This capacity for joy deepens the relationship because you can share in experiences with genuine delight. You're not just going through the motions or checking boxes. You're actually present to the beauty, the humor, the pleasure, the meaning in moments both grand and ordinary. This shared joy creates memories that sustain the relationship through difficult times and keeps it vibrant and alive. The 17th transformation involves his relationship with his past. Everyone carries their history with them. Past relationships, past hurts, past mistakes, past traumas. Some people stay stuck in their past, unable to move forward. Others try to pretend it doesn't exist, repressing memories and emotions that need to be processed. When a man falls for an older woman who has done the work of integrating her past into her present, who has healed old wounds and learned from past mistakes, he's inspired to do the same work himself. He might start therapy or counseling to address unresolved issues. He might have difficult conversations with people from his past to seek closure or reconciliation. He might simply spend time reflecting on his patterns and where they come from. This work of integrating the past is not easy, but it's necessary for showing up fully in the present relationship. As he does this work, he becomes less reactive. Patterns from past relationships don't automatically replay in your relationship because he's aware of them and can make different choices. Old wounds don't get triggered as easily because he's healed them or at least understands them. He can be present to you as you actually are rather than confusing you with someone from his past. This psychological transformation also involves forgiving himself for past mistakes. Many men carry guilt or shame about how they've behaved in past relationships or situations. When he sees that you've forgiven yourself for your own past mistakes while still learning from them, he gains permission to do the same. He can acknowledge where he's fallen short, make amends where possible, commit to doing better, and then release the self-punishment that serves no one. The 18th shift is in his relationship with the future. Some people are so focused on the future that they miss the present. They're always planning, preparing, worrying about what's coming next. Others avoid thinking about the future at all because it feels overwhelming or uncertain. When a man falls for an older woman who has a balanced relationship with the future, who plans wisely while also remaining present, who holds dreams while accepting uncertainty, his own relationship with future shifts. He becomes more intentional about creating the future he wants, rather than just letting life happen to him. He thinks about what he wants his life to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Not in rigid detail that leaves no room for life's unpredictability, but in terms of values, priorities, and direction. He considers what legacy he wants to leave, what kind of older man he wants to become. This future orientation includes thinking about the relationship. What are you building together? What shared dreams do you have? What kind of partnership do you want to create? These conversations about the future strengthen the relationship because they establish that this isn't just a pleasant present arrangement. You're both committed to building something lasting. At the same time, his future planning doesn't steal from his present. He can hold dreams for tomorrow while fully appreciating today. He can work toward goals while enjoying the journey. He can prepare for eventualities without living in constant anxiety about what might happen. This balanced relationship with time makes him both stable and present, prepared and spontaneous. The 19th psychological transformation involves his relationship with giving and receiving. Many people are more comfortable with one than the other. Some people can give endlessly, but struggle to receive, feeling unworthy or like they're burdening others. Others have no problem receiving but struggle with genuine giving that comes from care rather than obligation or manipulation. When a man falls for an older woman who has a balanced capacity for both giving and receiving, he learns to develop this balance himself. He learns to give freely without keeping score or expecting something in return. He gives because he cares, because it brings him joy to make you happy, because contributing to your well-being is valuable in itself. His giving isn't performative or designed to put you in debt to him. It's genuine expression of care and affection. Equally important, he learns to receive graciously. He can accept your gifts, your care, your support, without feeling like it diminishes his masculinity or independence. He understands that allowing you to give to him is actually a gift you're giving him, the gift of letting you express your care. He doesn't reject your help or insist on doing everything himself. He can be vulnerable enough to need you sometimes, to let you contribute to his life and well-being. This balanced dynamic of giving and receiving creates a flow in the relationship. It's not one person always taking care of the other or one person always being the strong one. It shifts and flows based on who needs what in any given moment. This creates true partnership where both people feel seen, valued, and cared for. The 20th shift involves his understanding of commitment. When men are young, commitment often feels like a trap. It means giving up freedom, giving up options, being tied down. There's often an underlying anxiety about committing because what if something better comes along? What if this isn't the right choice? What if he's missing out on something? But when a man falls for an older woman who understands that real freedom comes not from keeping all your options open, but from choosing what truly matters and committing to it fully, his perception of commitment transforms. He realizes that commitment isn't a trap, it's liberation. It's saying yes to what matters and no to everything else. It's the freedom that comes from clarity and dedication. He also learns that commitment isn't static. It's not a one-time decision made on a wedding day that then carries you through forever on autopilot. Commitment is a choice made daily. Some days that choice is easy and joyful. Other days it's more difficult, requiring effort and intention. But the commitment is what carries the relationship through the inevitable challenges that arise. This mature understanding of commitment makes him a more reliable partner. You can trust that he's not going to disappear when things get hard. He's not keeping one foot out the door or constantly reevaluating whether the relationship still serves him. He's committed, which means he's invested in working through difficulties, growing through challenges, and building something lasting together. The 21st psychological transformation involves his relationship with power and control. Many men have been socialized to believe they should be in control of their emotions, in control of situations, in control of relationships. This need for control often stems from fear and insecurity masked as strength. When a man falls for an older woman who is comfortable with shared power and mutual influence, who doesn't need to control him and doesn't want to be controlled by him, his need for control begins to relax. He learns that he doesn't need to have all the answers or make all the decisions. He can share the load of leadership in the relationship. He can admit when he doesn't know what to do. He can ask for your input and genuinely consider it rather than just doing what he wants regardless. He discovers that shared power is actually more sustainable and more satisfying than trying to control everything. He also learns to distinguish between having preferences and needing control. He can express what he wants without demanding that things always go his way. He can advocate for his needs while also remaining open to compromise. He can hold his position firmly when something is truly important to him, while being flexible on matters that aren't as significant. This shift away from needing control creates a relationship dynamic based on mutual respect rather than dominance and submission. Neither person is trying to overpower the other. You're collaborating, negotiating, finding solutions that work for both of you. This creates a sense of equality and partnership that makes the relationship feel safe and balanced. The 22nd shift involves his capacity for presence. In our modern world, presence is increasingly rare. We're constantly distracted by technology, by our own racing thoughts, by planning for the future or ruminating about the past. True presence, being fully here in this moment with another person, is a skill that must be cultivated. When a man falls for an older woman who values and practices presence, he's motivated to develop this capacity himself. He starts to notice when his mind is elsewhere during conversations with you. He catches himself scrolling through his phone when you're trying to share something important. He recognizes that splitting his attention between you and a dozen other things means he's not really with you at all. And he starts to make different choices. He puts the phone away during dinner. He turns off the TV when you're talking. He pauses his own mental chatter to really listen to what you're saying. He looks at you when you speak. He gives you his full attention, not because you demand it, but because he recognizes that presence is a gift you both deserve to give and receive. This capacity for presence transforms ordinary moments into meaningful connection. A simple conversation over coffee becomes rich with intimacy because you're both fully there. A walk together becomes a shared experience rather than two people moving side by side while lost in their own thoughts. The relationship deepens because you're actually present to each other, creating memories together rather than existing in parallel but separate realities. The 23rd psychological transformation involves his relationship with his own needs. Many men have learned to ignore or minimize their own emotional needs, focusing only on physical or material needs. They need food, shelter, sleep, sex. But emotional needs for connection, validation, support, comfort are often unacknowledged or suppressed. When a man falls for an older woman who takes her own needs seriously and encourages him to do the same, he begins to recognize and honor his emotional needs. He acknowledges that he needs emotional support sometimes, that he needs reassurance, that he needs physical affection beyond just sex, that he needs to feel appreciated and valued, that he needs time to recharge, that he needs to process his emotions. These aren't signs of weakness or neediness. They're human needs that everyone has, and acknowledging them is the first step toward getting them met in healthy ways. As he becomes more aware of his needs, he also becomes better at communicating them. Instead of expecting you to automatically know what he needs or getting resentful when his unspoken needs aren't met, he learns to ask directly for what he needs. This directness is far more effective than hints, manipulation, or silent suffering, and it creates a dynamic where both of you can actually support each other because you both know what the other needs. This honoring of his own needs also helps him respect yours better. When he understands that his needs are valid and important, he naturally extends the same understanding to your needs. He doesn't dismiss your needs as too demanding or unnecessary. He recognizes that meeting each other's needs is part of caring for each other, part of creating a relationship where both people can thrive. The 24th shift involves his relationship with money and material resources. Many people have complicated relationships with money. Some see it as a measure of worth. Some fear never having enough. Some use it as a tool for control or manipulation. When a man falls for an older woman who has a healthy, mature relationship with money, who sees it as a tool rather than an end in itself, who values security without being driven by greed or fear, his own relationship with money often shifts. He becomes more intentional about how he earns money, ensuring that his work aligns with his values rather than just chasing the highest paycheck. He becomes more thoughtful about how he spends money, distinguishing between what's truly important and what's just consumption for its own sake. He becomes more generous, recognizing that resources are meant to flow and that giving enhances life. In the context of your relationship, his approach to money becomes more collaborative. You discuss financial goals together. You make major financial decisions jointly. You're transparent about money matters rather than hiding spending or keeping secrets. You find an approach to managing finances that works for both of you, whether that's completely joint accounts or maintaining some independence. This healthy relationship with money reduces one of the major sources of conflict in relationships. Money isn't a power struggle or a source of shame or anxiety. It's a practical resource that you manage together to support the life you want to create. This matter-of-fact approach removes a lot of potential stress and allows you to focus on what actually matters in the relationship. The 25th psychological transformation involves his relationship with his body and physical health. Many men have been taught to ignore their bodies, except when pursuing athletic performance or physical appearance goals. They push through pain. They neglect signs of illness. They don't rest enough or nourish themselves properly. When a man falls for an older woman who takes care of her health, who listens to her body, who rests when needed, and moves when beneficial, he's inspired to develop a healthier relationship with his own body. He starts paying attention to what his body is telling him. He notices when he's tired and actually rests instead of pushing through with caffeine. He notices when something hurts and addresses it instead of ignoring it until it becomes a serious problem. He eats more mindfully, choosing foods that nourish rather than just consuming whatever is convenient. He moves his body regularly, not to punish it or perfect it, but to honor it and keep it healthy. This shift in how he relates to his body has benefits for him personally in terms of health and well-being, but it also benefits the relationship because he has more energy, feels better, and is more likely to be healthy and active as you both age together. You can enjoy activities together, you can travel, you can live fully rather than being limited by preventable health issues. Moreover, his improved relationship with his body often correlates with improved body image and self-confidence. He's less self-conscious, more comfortable in his own skin. This confidence is attractive and also creates more ease in physical intimacy because he's not preoccupied with insecurity about his body. The 26th shift involves his relationship with family, both his family of origin and potentially family you might create together. Family relationships are complex and often fraught with old patterns and unresolved issues. When a man falls for an older woman who has done the work of understanding her family dynamics, setting healthy boundaries where needed, and maintaining relationships that are supportive, while releasing relationships that are toxic, he's motivated to examine his own family relationships. He might need to set boundaries with family members who are intrusive or disrespectful. He might need to work on healing relationships that are important but strained. He might need to accept that some family relationships are limited or even need to be released for his own well-being. This work is often difficult because family is supposed to be sacred and society puts a lot of pressure on maintaining family relationships no matter what. But as he learns from you that healthy relationships require mutual respect and that blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to mistreat or manipulate him, he becomes empowered to restructure his family relationships in healthier ways. This often improves his overall mental health and reduces stress, which benefits the relationship because he's not carrying the constant burden of toxic family dynamics. In terms of family you might create together, whether that's blending existing families or starting fresh, his maturity in how he approaches family relationships means he's more likely to be a good partner in navigating the complexities of modern family life. He understands that family relationships require work, boundaries, communication, and respect. He's prepared to do that work alongside you. The 27th psychological transformation involves his relationship with friendship. Many men experience loneliness despite having people in their lives because their friendships are superficial. They have people they do activities with, people they work with, people they socialize with, but they don't have friends they can be emotionally vulnerable with or who truly know them. When a man falls for an older woman who maintains deep, meaningful friendships, who invests in her relationships, who gives and receives support from her friends, he recognizes what he's been missing. He might start investing more in his existing friendships, moving beyond surface-level interactions to deeper connection. He might cultivate new friendships with people who share his values and with whom he can be more authentic. He might release friendships that are draining or based on outdated versions of who he is. This development of richer friendships benefits him directly through the support, joy, and meaning these relationships bring, but it also benefits your relationship because he's not expecting you to meet all his emotional and social needs. He has a support system. He has people to talk to, people to spend time with, people who add richness to his life. This reduces pressure on the relationship to be everything for both of you. Moreover, when both of you maintain strong friendships outside the relationship, you each have space to be individuals with your own lives. You don't become enmeshed or codependent. You remain two complete people who choose to build a life together, not two half people who need each other to feel whole. The 28th shift involves his relationship with learning and curiosity. Some people stop learning once formal education ends. They develop their opinions and then defend them rigidly, rather than remaining open to new information or perspectives. When a man falls for an older woman who maintains intellectual curiosity, who continues learning and growing, who remains open to new ideas and perspectives, he's inspired to cultivate these qualities in himself. He starts reading more. He takes courses or attends workshops on topics that interest him. He asks questions rather than pretending to know everything. He's willing to say, "I don't know," or "I was wrong about that." He engages in conversations as opportunities to learn rather than as competitions to win. This intellectual vitality keeps both individuals interesting to each other. You have things to talk about. You bring new ideas and perspectives to conversations. You challenge each other's thinking in ways that promote growth. The relationship stays dynamic and engaging because you're both continuing to evolve intellectually. This curiosity also helps the relationship adapt to changing circumstances. When challenges arise, you're both willing to learn new skills or seek new information to address them. When the relationship needs adjustment, you're both open to learning better ways of relating rather than insisting on doing things the way you've always done them. This flexibility and willingness to learn together is what allows relationships to thrive long-term. The 29th psychological transformation involves his capacity for forgiveness, both receiving it and offering it. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone occasionally hurts people they care about, usually unintentionally. The question is, what happens after the hurt? When a man falls for an older woman who understands forgiveness as a process that includes acknowledgement of harm, genuine apology, change in behavior, and releasing resentment, he learns how to navigate hurt in healthier ways. When he makes a mistake, he learns to take responsibility fully, not making excuses or minimizing the impact, not turning it around to blame you, but genuinely acknowledging what he did, understanding how it affected you, apologizing sincerely, and committing to doing better. He learns that this process is what allows for genuine forgiveness and repair of trust. When you make a mistake, he learns to forgive, not to hold on to resentment and bring it up in future arguments. not to use it as leverage or to make you continually pay for your error, but to work through his feelings, communicate honestly about the impact, and then let it go once amends have been made. He understands that perfection isn't possible and that forgiveness is what allows relationships to survive mistakes. This capacity for healthy processes around hurt and forgiveness creates resilience in the relationship. You can survive difficulties because you know how to repair when harm occurs. You don't have to walk on eggshells trying never to make mistakes. You can be human, occasionally fall short, and trust that the relationship is strong enough to weather these moments. The 30th and final psychological shift we'll discuss is perhaps the most comprehensive. It's the shift from viewing the relationship as something that serves him to viewing the relationship as something he serves. This isn't about servitude or self-sacrifice. It's about a fundamental reorientation of his relationship to the partnership. When people are immature, they approach relationships asking, what can this person do for me? Do they make me happy? Do they meet my needs? Do they make me look good? Do they fit into my life conveniently? The relationship is evaluated based on how well it serves their individual desires. When a man falls for an older woman who approaches relationships as something to nurture, invest in, and contribute to, his perspective shifts. He begins to ask different questions. What can I contribute to this relationship? How can I help it thrive? What does this partnership need from me? How can I support my partner's growth and well-being? The relationship becomes something he actively creates and maintains, rather than something that either works or doesn't, based on whether his needs are being met. This doesn't mean his needs don't matter. They absolutely do. But he understands that meeting needs is a mutual process. He contributes to creating a relationship that meets both people's needs rather than expecting you to meet his needs while he just shows up and receives. He takes responsibility for the health and quality of the relationship. This shift in orientation is perhaps the clearest marker of maturity in relationship. It's what separates people who are ready for real partnership from those who are still operating from a place of self-centeredness. And when both people in a relationship have made this shift, when both people are actively contributing to creating something beautiful together, the relationship has the potential to be truly extraordinary. So what does all of this mean for you as a woman experiencing a man who is going through these psychological transformations? First, recognize that this is a process. He's not going to shift in all these ways overnight. Growth takes time. There will be moments of progress and moments of backsliding. There will be areas where he grows quickly and areas where change is slower. Your patience and support during this process, while also maintaining your boundaries and standards, creates the conditions for his continued growth. Second, understand that not all of these shifts will happen with every man. Some men will resonate with certain areas of growth more than others, based on their individual history, personality, and areas where they most need development. That's normal. The question isn't whether he makes all 30 shifts perfectly, but whether he's genuinely committed to growth and whether the areas where he is growing are the areas that matter most for a healthy relationship. Third, remember that you're not responsible for making him grow. You can create conditions that support growth. You can model what maturity looks like. You can offer feedback and encouragement. But ultimately, his growth is his responsibility. If he's not willing to do the work, if he's not genuinely committed to becoming a better person and partner, there's nothing you can do to force it. And that's important information. It tells you whether this is a relationship worth continuing to invest in. Fourth, recognize your own power in this dynamic. The qualities you embody, the maturity you've cultivated, the wisdom you've gained through your experiences, these are not liabilities despite what society might suggest about aging women. These are tremendous assets. They're precisely what enables the psychological transformations we've been discussing. Your very presence, your very being is catalytic. You're not too much. You're not too old. You're not too anything negative. You're exactly what a mature man who's ready for real love needs. Fifth, maintain your standards. The fact that a man is growing doesn't mean you accept poor treatment in the meantime. Growth is wonderful, but you also deserve to be treated well right now. You can acknowledge and appreciate his efforts to grow, while also maintaining clear boundaries about what you will and won't accept in the relationship. This balance of supportiveness and self-respect is crucial. Sixth, continue your own growth. This isn't just about him growing to meet you. This is about both of you continuing to evolve individually and together. You have your own areas for growth, your own patterns to examine, your own edges to push. The most powerful relationships are those where both people are committed to becoming better versions of themselves, not just for the relationship, but for their own authentic development. Finally, trust yourself. You have the wisdom to recognize whether the psychological shifts happening in him are genuine or performative. You have the experience to distinguish between real change and temporary good behavior designed to manipulate you. You have the strength to walk away if the relationship isn't serving your growth and well-being. Trust that. Trust your instincts, your observations, your gut feelings. They've been honed through years of experience and they're reliable guides. The psychological shift that happens when a man falls for an older woman is real, profound, and potentially transformative for both people. It's one of the most beautiful things that can happen in the realm of human connection, because it's not based on illusion or projection or societal expectations. It's based on two people showing up authentically and creating something meaningful together. But it requires the right people at the right time with the right level of maturity and willingness to grow. It requires a woman who knows her worth and won't settle for less than she deserves. And it requires a man who's ready to grow beyond societal conditioning and limiting beliefs about what relationships should be. When these elements align, the result is a relationship characterized by depth, authenticity, growth, passion, respect, and genuine partnership. A relationship that enriches both people's lives and becomes a source of joy, support, and meaning. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into the psychological transformations that happen when a man genuinely falls for an older woman. I hope this has given you insight, validation, and perspective on your own relationships and experiences. If you found this valuable, please hit that like button right now. It makes a tremendous difference in helping this content reach more women who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, your experiences, or your questions. I read the comments and your contributions add so much value to our community. Share this video with a friend who might benefit from understanding these dynamics. Subscribe to The Heart Code if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss our content. And if you really want to support this channel and the work we do, consider thanking us with super thanks. Your support keeps this content coming. Remember, your worth isn't determined by age or by whether you're in a relationship or by anything external. Your worth is inherent. You are valuable simply because you exist. The right relationship enhances your life. It doesn't create your worth. Walk through the world knowing that. Carry yourself with the confidence that comes from truly understanding your value, and choose relationships that honor who you are, not relationships that make you question yourself or diminish your light. Until next time, stay empowered, stay authentic, and remember, you are worthy of love that sees you, values you, and grows with you. I'll see you in the next video.